Hello my lovelies, so this is Lizzie from Love From Lizi, and today I'm bringing you the November 2018 10 cards 1 kit video. And as always, I have this majorly sped up just to make sure that we can get through all of the footage in around half an hour, giving me approximately 3 minutes per card. So yeah, I have to keep it quick. This is how I make all of my card bases this month, apart from one, and I will go into that when we come to it. But I've got a piece of American letter size, which is 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I split it across the middle so that I have two A2 note cards from each sheet of card. They obviously are all the cardstock that are provided within the kit. There are 2 craft and 3 Copic friendly white cardstock sheets. Now on this first card you'll see that I did actually, you can see there's some powder residue there on that first card base because I was going to heat emboss, but I changed my mind and just left it as watermark. I do love the look of Versamark straight onto craft because it's the tone on tone is really stark, so it does really well. So I've just used the infinity stamp just once in the middle there, and I've used some multimedia matte on the reverse, on one of the snowflakes, the felt snowflakes, and popped one of the star gems from the embellishment bag into the centre of the snowflake. And now I'm using the washi tape that also comes in the kit, and I'm using the lines on the grid mat to line that up to make sure that it's nice and super straight. And this is the first time that I'm using this craft mat, and I'm still not sure on it, if I'm entirely honest. One, I don't know how I'm going to get rid of that shine from my overhead lamp, because that must be really irritating for you guys, so I do apologise about that in advance. But 2, everything's sliding around all over the place. It's lovely and clean, it looks very tidy, but I suppose it's just something I have to get used to. Anywho, sorry, I digress. I have popped some of the clear tack, sort of the foam. They're not foam squares because they're clear, but they are dimensional squares, shall we say, behind my acetate word joy, and I'm using some multimedia matte just to pop down that felt snowflake. And then I attach the joy sort of overhanging the bottom of the snowflake and then over the washi tape. Push everything down, and that is my first card. Super simple and straightforward, but nice to ease into the kit in with an old favourite style, if you like. Okay, card number 2. I'm using a white card base here, and I'm cutting a piece of the patterned paper. There are 18 sheets of 6x6 patterned paper in this kit, so you've got plenty to choose from. And here I'm using tumbled glass distress oxide, and this is one of the perks of this craft mat, is that I have always got this part of the craft mat available, although I am a little bit off centre of the screen, so I'm trying it, I'm working with it. Do any of you have this craft mat? If so, what are your thoughts? But yes, all I'm doing here is with a little finger dauber, just going around the edges, making sure that the first time that I'm putting my finger down is actually on the mat as opposed to on the paper, so that I don't get a big splodge of colour. And here I'm taking one of the white tags from the embellishment bag, and I'm fussing around with the very small stamps here because they want to stick to my fingers. So I just use my tweezer and my pencil, and I'm just arranging all the snowflakes from the Let It Snow stamp set that came in the kit, just so that there is sort of cascading from one side down to the other, and using my mini Misty here. And you'll see that I do end up having to mess around with the string of the tag here because it gets caught behind one of the stamps, so I have to snip a bit out, and you know, happens to the best of us. And again, I'm using that same tumbled glass oxide ink just to ink up the snowflakes, and I do this a few times to get real good colour coverage on the snowflakes. And then once I've finished giving them a good firm press, I ink up the edge of the tag as I did with the pattern paper, just to pull that colour in and to give it some definition to help it sit away from the pattern paper that is so very gentle in the background. And this kit, I would like to say at this point in the video, is still in stock. We've got good stock this month. Purposefully, we have a very special guest designer this coming weekend, which I'm very excited about. And I mean, to be fair, the kits have done incredibly well. All of the add-ons sold out in an hour and a half, so thankfully I have been able to restock most of them. But yeah, so this kit has been very well received, which is very warming. Anyway, sorry, I'm chattering away. I've just glued down the felt fox with the multimedia mat, and I'm cutting a piece of the burlap ribbon here. And burlap I always find to be a little bit of a pest to glue down, so I've very generously put some multimedia mat down, and I'm really pushing it now. I can feel it on my fingers coming through, but because it's multi-mat, it dries clear, you don't know that it's there, so it's perfect for that sort of those sorts of things to adhere down. Here I'm just using my not so big mama roll of tape now because I've used it so much, and I've foam mounted up that card panel onto the front of my card, and I'm mounting up my little foxy tag as well. But what I'm doing is I'm popping the foam tape above and below where the burlap will be, because otherwise the tag will sort of have a big bulky bend in it. So I've sort of left a gully in the foam so that will sit nice and flat on my card there. I had left a little bit of burlap overhanging, but I didn't like how it looked. It looked untidy and unfinished, so I did trim that off. Popped a little bit of multimedia mat under the twine there of the tag. And I've left this one sentiment free, so it's in the colour palette, but it could be for a winter birthday, it could be for a new baby, or just because card. So I do often like to leave my cards sentiment free so that I can, because I'm one of these people that needs to give a card and I never have one on hand. So all of these cards that I leave sentiment free mean that I've got something available, which helps. Anywho, here I've cut a piece of patterned paper because I'm on to card 3 now. And I've put ATG along the 3 sides. I didn't trim it all the way down because it is easier, in my opinion, to trim it after it's been stuck down. And then I popped the ATG on the card base, knowing where it needed to go. And now I'm taking, this is the middle sized peel off. There's 3 different widths on each sheet of peel offs in the pinstripes. And I'm just running a border along both edges. It just sort of finishes, it almost looks like perhaps that the pattern paper piece is mounted up on something shiny, so it's like a little bit of a cheat. And here I've taken one of the tags and I've laced directly through one of the narrow ribbons. And here I'm taking one of the tags. Now I'm doing something a little bit different to normal. I'm cutting all the way around this sentiment, so I am also cutting the backing piece. The way that these tags have been made is they have what's called a bleed, so that it makes absolutely sure that all the printing goes all the way to the edge, but what that leaves is really pretty patterns on the waist piece of the page that continue. So what I've decided to do was cut a very neat rectangle around the edge of the bleed pattern, and I'm going to use that as part of my design. So I've just marked with a pencil where I want that to go, and I'm using some multimedia mat. This was on my desk, so this glue is going to feature a lot in this video. Whatever is on hand is often what I use. So I make sure that I've got the paper like rectangle there the right way up, and using the little pencil lines that I made, which subsequently don't matter because they're going to be covered by the inner piece. I've just popped that straight down, and then I'm using the narrowest of the peel-offs just to run all the way around the edge. And I've shown this before, but this is how I miter the corners. I make sure the strips cross each other, and then I just push my blade in and it diagonally, and then I'm able to take the 2 sides away. And here I'm using just a little bit of tape runner just onto the back of my sentiment there, and attached both ends of the ribbon. And I'm using some very crude painter's tape here just to give it an extra hold, and then I'm using some foam squares. I fix that up in the middle of the little frame that I put there. So it's a very simple, quick and easy card, but great for this time of year. So card 4, and I've got another white card base, and I've chosen another one of the patterned papers, using quite a busy one. And here I've taken a die from my stash. This is just a circle die, and I've cut around one of these sort of little wreaths that's got a bunny in it. And then here's that clear tack again. I'm just mounting up love, and I just place little strips that I've cut directly behind the foiling so that it can't be seen. And if it is seen, it's see-through, so it's only going to be quite, you'd have to really look for it. You'd really want to know how it was stuck down to see it. Anyway, now sticking down the patterned paper straight onto the card base, and then sort of laying down the bunny where approximately it will go. Stick down my love sentiment, and then just here mounting up the back of the tag with some 3D foam tape, some scotch tape. And then once I've removed all the backing, popping that down. And I ummed and ahed about moving it off centre, then to the centre, and it is slightly off centre here. Then I tie a little bow, and I've left this in here, as painful as this may be for some people to watch, but this is how I tie a bow. I make 2 little bunny ears, fold them around each other, and then fuss with the ends until the bow is the size, and yeah, the loops are as big as I like, and invariably it does walk its way down the ribbon a little bit, but I don't waste ribbon by cutting it first. And then I just used some little glue dots, it was a mini glue dot in fact, to attach that down. And here I'm using the Nuvo drops that come as part of the kit, and I've just taken a piece of rubbish there just to make sure that it comes out nicely. And there are some little berries on this tag, and I just go very carefully, just touching the Nuvo to it, because these berries are itty bitty tiny, and I didn't want to end up with a great big blob where they all sort of merged into one another. And it looked a little bit top heavy, so then I went around and just dabbed 5 very small dots in around the edge in 4 different places, and that completes this card. So I've kept these cards largely very, very simple, because Christmas cards, you end up making a million of them and you'll be there all year. So, I mean, some of these are more involved than others and that have taken more time. I mean, this card, you get to see quite a lot at the back of my head. I do apologise in advance. But I'm using the infinity stamp from the stamp set, and I wanted to show everybody, obviously, how it's done. This is quite different to the infinity stamp that I did earlier on this year, being that the design is much tighter and smaller. But it's the same principle applies. So here you've seen I've got a card panel here. This isn't my card base. I've got a card panel, and I have stamped and here you can see me lining it all up, getting it all great. And then look, I'm like, oh, mini Misty, not even the full size Misty. So I've got to move it around. So have to line it up all over again. But the easiest way to line this up, I know I'm interrupting myself here, but the easiest way to line it up is to look at the side of the stamp, and I believe you'll be able to see it on this one, but I line it up looking over top, and when it looks to be in approximately the right place, I sort of get my face almost down on the desk and look to see where the stamp is touching the embossing that I've already done here. So anti-static powder tool, Versamark ink, which I did re-ink, by the way. I made sure this was super juicy. And I just work my way around. The one thing to remember is just keep the stamp the same way up as the card panel, because when you start twisting that out, it's going to be a real pest to get it back round the right way again. So yeah, apologies for all my hair, but I did want to overemphasise how much getting your head around the stamp, looking at where it goes, is the way that you're going to get the best connection. Now, what I didn't do when I was making this card, which I should have done, was clean my stamp in between. What I did, because it's Versamark, because you can't see it, you forget that it's there. And then when I was pouring the embossing powder over it, it was sticking everywhere. Then I was sitting there with a paintbrush, and the snowflakes aren't as crisp as they could have been. So I'm giving you the benefit of my mistake in that make sure that you wipe your stamp in between so that you don't have the same hash that I did. Okay, so I've moved on with my making here. I used the reindeer die and cut a circle out of the snowflaked panel, and then I've laid that on top of my card base where it will go, marked with a little pencil where the circle will be, and then I've laid my stamp in it, closed the Misty, erased the pencil lines away, and then again now using the Versamark anti-static powder tool and silver dollar embossing powder combo, to heat emboss my sentiment, which is Let It Snow, and to make it pop a little bit more, because I love just silver and white cards. I think they're really clean and classy, beautiful for Christmas, but I just wanted to make it just stand up just a little bit more. So I'm using that tumbled glass again, because it's ever such a pale blue, over the top of that embossing, just to give it a little something extra to push it to the front. And then to tie it in, I'm then also going along the edge of the card panel. I can foresee me doing an awful lot of ink blending now that I have this blending mat on my desk all the time. I can see me reaching for my oxides and my distress inks more often, which is great. On the reverse side of my card panel, I put an awful lot of Scotch tape just to flatten it out a bit, because when you heat emboss obviously over and over, it will warp it somewhat. So now I'm on to card 6, and I've taken 2 banner dies, they're stitched banner dies from my stash, and cut a large one from the pattern paper and a small one from the vellum. And here I'm taking the peel-offs, my pinstripe peel-offs that came in the kit, and I am using the middle width again here, and all I'm doing is I'm following the lines of the craft mat at every 1/4 inch, I believe this is. I'm learning after making such a wally of myself in the last video. I'm going to try ever so hard to learn my inch sizes, and then having laid those all down, I trim off all the extra bits, and you will find those little extra bits everywhere. They are stuck to my nails, they're in my hairbrush, absolutely everywhere. Sorry to say it, just giving you a warning. And here I've taken the wooden tree, and I've used some painter's tape just to mask off the star and the little trunk, I suppose it is, or pot, depending on how you colour your tree. To be fair, I didn't need to mask off the bottom, because it's going to be dark brown anyway, so it would have covered it. But I'm just showing you here how I keep my blending foam for each colour. I just tape it underneath, and that was bundled sage, by the way, and I'm using a jelly roll pen there just to colour in the star. And rather than trying to use a blending foam on such a small area, I just pushed the wood veneer straight into the Gathered Twigs oxide ink, just to colour up the little bit at the bottom there. And here I've used ever such a small amount of multimedia matte behind the peel-offs to adhere that down. You can, in real life, on the card, see the adhesion ever so slightly if you really look for it, but I knew that I'd be putting this ribbon up at the top here, so it was the best that I could do, short of gluing it behind the tree. But I really wanted the whole of the banner to have that freedom and movement. And here I've just used the multimedia matte on the back of my little tree, and it was at this point that I ummed and ahed and thought I need something else. So I've got that Sakura pen again, and I'm just dotting. They're not circles, there's no organisation, it's just dot 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 all over the place. And then here I'm having a fight with my ATG gun, just adhering that back banner onto the card base. And that is the end of that card. And here we are moving on to card 7. Card 7 I really like in the end. The idea was great. The camera didn't roll to start off with, which is why you didn't get to see me cut the twine off and then lace the 2 tags together using the white and the silver ribbon, so I apologise for that. And then here I've used the reindeer die, run it through the die cutting machine. I'm using some of the acetate on the back here, and I'm using a folded strip of foam tape. So this foam tape is 2 widths deep, if you like, and I'm just manipulating it to go directly around the edge of that circle on the back, and I save that little bit to use in a minute. So I did adhere down the glitter tag as well. I hastened to add so that it didn't move on the front. It does look like it could swing, but it is fixed. And then I use silver mirror cardstock with the deer die, and then using glossy accents I stick that onto the front of the acetate. And now I sort of position where I want the tag to lay across the card front. and then I take some of the sequins, and I love this sequin mix, and I feel as though I haven't been fair to it in this video. I didn't use it anywhere near as much as I should have done, but I was trying to make sure that I used every product, and I think I did. At least once I used something of everything once. And here you'll see I'm just doubling up the foam elsewhere on the tag just to make sure that it all sits at the same height, and popping that on the back once I have a nice little pool of sequins on the card base. I did use my anti-static powder tool inside the circle to make sure the sequins didn't stick on the inside in case there's a little bit of adhesive there. And then this is when I started to fuss with the card, and it did come good, but I wasn't quite happy with it. It wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. So I've taken 2 of the smaller snowflakes from the stamp set, and then I'm using Versamark anti-static powder tool, silver dollar embossing powder, and my heat gun, and I heat them all up. And then I'm almost happy, but of course where this has had glue and my fingers all over it, the embossing powder wasn't staying where it was supposed to. So yes, if you're going to emboss, I would say do it at the beginning. Now I did my little wave, this card's finished. It's not. If you look at the photograph at the end, you will see that I did actually add something else to it. But anywho, I am going to move on to the next card, and this is me using the falling snow stencil, which also is included in the kit. I'm using a craft card base, and I've got some Nouveau embellishment mousse here, and I'm just pressing it in over the top. There is no fancy technique to this. It's just scrape a load out of the pot and push as much of it as you can into the holes, and then once every hole is filled, this is when you see my meanness coming. You could just peel it off at this point, but I want to get as much as humanly possible back in that pot for future use. So yes, I just use the edge of the trowel, spatula. I believe we had this discussion last time I used this tool. And as I'm not a builder, I think I'm supposed to call it a spatula, but I think it looks like a trowel. And then yes, I just peel up the painter's tape, which then gets repositioned onto my die cutting machine, and I will use this tape to hold my dies down in future. And here's the magic moment. Ta-da! Now I've zoomed right in here to show you what happened. The mousse did spill a little bit under the stencil, but all I did was I waited for it to dry, and then I used my knife and I just sort of very gradually scratched, and it did come away. It's not perfect, but it looks much better than it did. So that's if there's a boo-boo. And here I've taken a tag, and then I've taken some of the white satin ribbon, and I've laced it through. And here I've taken the wish. Now these acetate sentiments have all got a protective layer on them, so do sort of remove that before you use them, because it will make them much shinier when you stick them down. So I've used the little star die here, and I run it with the glitter cardstock through the die cutting machine, and then I sit the wish where I want it to go, and then I pop the die down on the tag, and then I also use, this is Glossy Accents. I've just decanted it into a fine tipped bottle to make it easier to put it where I want it to go, particularly with sequins. And then I use some foam tape on the back of the tag, and I just mount that tag up towards the bottom. So this is again another really super simple and quick card, and if you're mass manufacturing your Christmas cards, a little card like this will be nice and straightforward to put together. It's handmade still, and yeah, I'm a fan of it. Anyway, card 9. Now I'm not sure if this is my favourite. It's one of my more unique, shall we say. So here I've taken my card base and I've cut it in half right along the crease. And then I've trimmed another little piece there, which is, I believe, 1/2 inch. I can't remember the measurement now, I'm afraid. But I've taken another strip, and then I'm measuring 5.5 by 4.25 plus 1/4 inch. So I can do this, I can score, so that I'm making a little flap, and then I fold that over using my bone folder and give it a really good crease. I use ATG on one of these card panels now that I cut, and I fold over that top piece. It's a little bit fiddly because I do want to make sure everything is lined up perfectly. And then once it's down, I use my bone folder to really push it in, and then I've run ATG again over the top, and then I've just hidden that little seam with that little extra piece. And that's me all excited because the vellum has stood up. I was worried that it would just fall flat. And it shouldn't do. As long as you don't put anything too heavy on it, it'll be fine. And here I've taken one of the pattern papers and used my pencil and my trimmer in my favourite fashion to trim up a little panel. Again, quickly at this point, I need to make sure that I say the add-on orders are still available in the store up until Monday morning UK time, which is going to be back to GMT of 9 AM. So you've got until the 29th, which is obviously extended this month. And I'm just going to quickly jump back to what I'm doing here. I've die cut one of the tags down to be smaller, and then I've stuck one of the stickers onto the silver mirror and then fussy cut around the edge of that. I'm gluing 2 little stars onto the top of the Christmas trees. And because I need this to not be bulky, you know, there is method to my madness here. I tape down, using painter's tape, the pattern paper where it needs to sit. And now here, I'm sticking down, using just tape runner. I should have really glued the gems after I'd done this. And then once they're stuck onto the front of the vellum, I then flip it open and put tape on the back of the 2 little toppers. Now I did obviously get the tape runner where I shouldn't have done, and I just used my sand eraser, and it came off perfectly. You wouldn't have even known. With vellum it will show through, so if you can get rid of it, do. And then here I've just closed the card over, and then because it's painter's tape it lifts up, and now I have my card front, and it means also that you can write on the craft on the inside and it won't show. So that's card 9. So I think that was probably my favourite. Do let me know which one's your favourite in the comments below, because I always like to know what people like watching. And this is card 10. Final card. We're nearly there. And here I'm using this reindeer die. I cut it 3 times out of that remainder piece of craft cardstock. And then I also cut out 3 of the reindeer from the glitter cardstock. And then I'm using my pokey tool here. I did run the die with the glitter cardstock twice through my machine. I ran it forwards and then I ran it back because it's a very thick cardstock, and there's nothing more frustrating in my opinion than die cutting something and it doesn't actually die cut. So and they came up perfectly. Now I've run some tape behind these circles because ultimately I'm going to run a little loop of ribbon to the top of the card from each of these circles, so that these are almost like hanging baubles, if that makes sense. It will all come good when you see the finished card. And then once I've got those all stuck down in the tape, I then put some extra tape over the top just to make sure they don't go anywhere. Now this is a really fiddly bit, and unfortunately it's not great for YouTubing because the thread is see-through. However, what I did was I laced on a little jingle bell onto a piece of see-through thread, and then I've laced it to tie it around the reindeer's neck. That's not as offensive as it sounds, it is. But tied it round, tied 3 knots, because it is sort of like a plastic, like a nylon thread. So it's a little bit slippery. And what I've done again, used a little bit of tape, and I've just stuck that over the top just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And I did that for all 3 reindeers. So those 3 little jingle bells have ended up as sort of like a little cowbell around the reindeer. And here I'm just working out how I was going to do this because I really like those corner pieces and it felt like a waste to just destroy them. So I kept them, I've hoarded them. Here I've just put some more tape runner on the back and then stuck the green down, and then I've put some foam tape over the whole of the back, and then I'm mounting this up onto the front of my card base. Now here I'm using glossy accents in the superfine tip nozzle, and just going all the way around, catching all the little snowflakey bits, because they're the sort of bits that will get caught in an envelope and then bend and then the card looks naff. So making sure that they're all super covered. And then I used one of the stickers, and I used some multimedia mats to hold that on, because getting anything to stick to glitter is, you know, it's nigh on impossible. So multimedia mat's really good for that. And then popped that onto the glitter cardstock just to tie in the glitter again. And then mounted that up towards the top. And that was card 10. So here are my kit leftovers. I've still got a bit of all of the 4 specialties. Plenty of stickers. I only used one of the die cut tags. Lots of peel offs. Obviously the stamp set and the stencil set are forever. Then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 full sheets of paper. And the other 7 there's still bits of. The Nuve drops, lots of ribbon still, my washi tape. I've got the 2 dies with some bits cut out. I've got lots of sequins. I've still got stars and the Christmas trees, tags, printed tags. I've still got 2 acetate sentiments. And then there's still the felt animals and 2 felt snowflakes. So there's still lots of card potential there. Additional supplies, it's the usual suspects. Trimmer, ATG, heat gun, Misty, Scotch foam tape. Lots of scissors, pokers, tweezers, multimedia mat, glossy accents, my knife, my craft pick, my pencil, my bone folder. I didn't use my T-square ruler this month, that's unusual. Tape runner, blending tool, a filter, my Mono Tombow sand eraser, the bundled sage, tumbled glass and gathered twigs, my tapes, silver dollar embossing powder, the embellishment mousse in platinum, mini glue dots, Cool-Tac foam clear, foam squares, Versamark anti-static powder tool, my jelly roll pen, a small acrylic block, 2 banner dies, and 2 circle dies. Also my die cutter, obviously. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Here are the still shots. Thank you again ever so much for sticking with me till the end. If you just hold on a moment or two longer, you'll see the card, which, yeah, it may also be one of my favourites. I don't know. I'm actually really happy with all of my cards from this month. And often there's usually one that I think I really dislike that. But here's that card. I put Noel over the top and it really finished it off nicely. Do let me know which was your favourite. And check back as the rest of the design team are going to be making their 10 card one kits very soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.